Hi guys! So yesterday you learned about atoms and kind of broke down one little teeny tiny particle in any of the elements on the periodic table of elements. But today you are going to learn about molecules. So we're going to learn what that word means and then the two really important things that kind of branch off of it. So basically a molecule is just two atoms bonded together. So they're just two or more atoms just bonded together. So this could be two gold atoms. This could be a hydrogen and an oxygen. It could be anything as long as it's two or more atoms bonded together. But there's two things that branch off of the molecule name that we have to remember, and that's the difference between an element and a compound. An element is any of the elements on the periodic table of elements, but if you have more than one of those elements stuck together, then yes, they're a molecule, but that molecule is just the element. So for example, if I colored this in, let's see, yellow, if I colored this one in yellow, gold is an element on the periodic table of elements. If you have a gold ring, then you have a lot of gold atoms stuck together, and they have formed something large enough that you can now see it. So but the important thing for elements is that all of the atoms are exactly the same. They're all gold atoms. They're just one element, but because there's more than one of them, they form a molecule. The other type of molecule that I want you to know about is a compound. And compounds happen when you have two or more atoms of two or more different kinds of elements. So one that you guys know about is H2O. So I could have two hydrogen atoms and I could have one oxygen atom, and they bind together and they form a compound. Still a molecule, but now it's a compound. If it's just one element like gold, iron, or pure oxygen or whatever, we still have a molecule, but it's just the element. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is reading chemical formulas. So, chemical formulas are basically just the letters and numbers that tell you how many of those atoms make that molecule to make that thing. So, the one, I'm going to go back to H2O because we know that one pretty well. H2O, we have a hydrogen, a 2, and an oxygen. H for hydrogen, 2 for two of those hydrogens, and an oxygen. The little itty bitty numbers will always tell you how many of the letter before there are. So I know there are 2 hydrogens, and I know we don't have to write the 1 for the oxygen. Since it's right there already, we already know there's 1. If there's more than 1, we would need to put a number. But because we don't need to write 1, we can say it right there. So we just know that there's the 1 oxygen. So 1 oxygen, we have 2 hydrogens, and that tells us how many are going on. But there's a couple times that you will see that this is different, because today you're going to be finding something else in your home that you can figure out the chemical formula for, and like the molecule that it creates. So there's a couple other things I want to show you. You may find out that something has a chemical formula that looks something like this. These are completely made up right now. This isn't something that I want you to dive into. But you may see something that says something like big 2 H2O. All this means is, now if you see a big 2, it's talking about the whole molecule. So not only do I have 2 oxygens and 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen, but I have 2 of that entire molecule, the whole thing. So instead, I would need to draw 2 examples of that, 1 oxygen and 2 hydrogens. Oxygen, hydrogen, hydrogen. I would need to draw 2, like this. It's a really rough drawing, but hopefully you get my point. Okay, the other thing that I want you to keep a lookout for is when you see little letters. When you see little lowercase letters, so we have capital N, lowercase a. These are combined. The little letter is always combined with the big letter before it. So really, this formula says Na2N. They have to use little letters or lowercase letters in the periodic table of elements because those let us know the difference between this element that starts with an N and this element that starts with an N, because this element, Na, is for sodium, but this element, N, is just straight up nitrogen. So we have 2 sodiums and 1 nitrogen, and you could probably draw that out kind of looking like your H2O molecule yourself at this point in time. Okay, lastly, just because I don't want you to forget this rule as well. Let's say it says NaN. This is where it could get tricky because you really have to pay attention to, like, where did I see that lowercase letter? You'll notice there's no numbers. But remember, there doesn't have to be, because if they don't give us a number, it means there's only one. They basically figured, what's the point in writing 1? We already know there's 1 because we wrote it. So we have 1 sodium, we have 1 nitrogen. Don't mix them up. Make sure you're not combining them. It is not NaN. That's not one thing. They are 2 separate things. The new element always starts with the new capital letter. So these are completely different elements. But together they form a compound. Not just a molecule that is a pure element, because only when all of the atoms are exactly the same, like a bunch of gold or a bunch of copper, then that is the only time when every single atom is exactly the same that it would be a pure element that is also a molecule. Okay, today you're going to be doing a couple things. You're going to be finding out about what the chemical formula is for something in your house, like a banana or an apple. I don't know, whatever you want. But you are also then going to get to play a little game where you're going to be able to take different elements and combine them and create something else. And there's some parts of the game that are a little off, but for the most part, I think you'll like it. And for fun, we're going to find out, we're going to find out about what are the different elements that are in your body. Because remember, the coolest thing about the periodic table of elements is that it's basically like an ingredients list for creating everything you know to be true, including yourself. So we're going to find out what's in our body and, like, what does it do, and create a little cookbook ingredient list for creating a human. So I hope you have fun. I hope this makes sense. This is a funky way to teach you guys, but I hope that it helped, and good luck on the rest of your assignment, and I'll be here if you need me. Bye.